It's October the 13th, 2022, and I'm Uncle Ricky, and this is Uncle Ricky's House on YouTube and the podcast version, multitasking, doing two things at once. But look, today is personally for me and probably for you one of the craziest days I've seen in my lifetime, as far as in reference to the American legal system and the value of the rule of law for society. I know many of you think that, this is going to be all about January 6th because the ninth hearing was held today, and probably believe that I'm going to bring in some anti-Trump type stuff because, honestly, I'm an anti-Trump type person because he is a demon, a devil, that somehow managed to get into the White House as president of our country. And from day one, his personal goal was to tear down democracy, erode the value of the Constitution, and supplant the doctrine that our country was built on with his own hateful, self-serving agenda. And normally you would be right, but also there are other things happening on the federal and the state level as far as the legal judicial system in this country that are totally perplexing. First item is the Parkland school shooting verdict. It's taken 2 years to get to the point that we find out that a person that killed 17 kids, 17 students that were just on the verge of stepping out into society and starting their own lives. God knows what kind of contributions they would have made. God knows what their lives would have been like. No one can predict if they had children, what their children would have been like, and so forth and so on. He also wiped out the lives of 2 teachers. I made 19 people, and these teachers were already contributing, yes, professionally, but they were giving back to society. And their contributions were self-evident by the testimonies of the surviving students that were there when their fellow students and teachers were massacred. Now, Mr. Cruz, I'm not even going to try to even explain his motives for what he did. But the results speak for themselves. The witnesses' testimonies speak for themselves. And yet and still, due to the way that the Florida legal system is designed, a state that still has the death penalty and has had no problem handing down the death penalty in cases where far fewer people were killed, where the cases were prosecuted with far less evidence, even shakier evidence. And here, this guy, instead of getting the needle that he deserved, yeah, I said it, he deserved the death penalty. And I'm not a big fan of the death penalty because it's not applied with equality in this country. But in a state that is known for its lack of apprehension in using the death penalty, this guy gets life. He gets, it may be a life in prison, but check this out. This guy was a loner to start with. He's not a social type person. And if he goes to prison because of the circumstances surrounding his incarceration, he's not going to be put in general population because other prisoners would end his life just because of what he did. There's a respect in prison for killers with a purpose, killers that, kill for revenge against, people that did things to their families, did things to their loved ones, did things to their associates, and respect for just thugs, that kill for profit motives, but there's very little respect for killers, pedophiles that go out and wipe out young lives with no reason, no justification, except I woke up one day and I was pissed, so I'm gonna go wipe out these people. I'm not gonna say I'm disappointed, but I am gonna say I'm pissed, because in all the places where, in all the cases that you thought that the death penalty was appropriate, this was number one. This should have been a slam dunk. And why, you may ask yourself, this shit happens? Well, if you look back during the trial, especially after the initial trial period was over and the guilty verdict was handed down, when it went into the sentencing portion, so many different elements, so many different groups had so much to say about this case. And you'd be surprised, people that are normally hardcore talking about the rule of law, support the blue, that talk about that, you kill somebody, you deserve to get strapped down and get a needle in your arm, no questions asked. Suddenly they're the ones that are presenting the what ifs and why fors and maybe not so's because of their beliefs in the Second Amendment. Definitely if this guy got life, definitely if this guy was executed for his crimes, it would be a knock against the Second Amendment, because he fell into that age category that many of the restrictions that are being proposed, it was too damn young and too unstable to own a gun. Yeah, it might point back to mental, but he wasn't that mental that he couldn't plan out and execute a shooting that resulted in the deaths of 19 people. The guy should be sitting on death row. He should have been on death row by now. State of Florida spent millions of dollars, and I'm sure the prosecutors from day one were intent on seeing a death penalty rendered at the end of this. Yeah, life in prison, yeah, it's a sentence, it's a consequence, but is it the correct outcome for this case? I don't know. You think about that. I'm going to leave that subject for now. The rest of the stuff, yeah, it goes back to Trump. It goes back to January 6th. Check this out. The January 6th committee has voted to issue a subpoena for, guess who? Donald John Trump, to come in and be deposed, to make testimony under oath. Now, many legal experts say that, with everything that's going on, this is basically maybe, just ceremonial, just the committee saying, fuck you, Trump, and that Trump will do as usual, and by the time the midterms are over and it's determined, who runs the Senate, who runs Congress, if things go the wrong way, the January 6th committee won't even exist the day after the new Congress is sworn in. in January. But perhaps they may survive. And this is a threat, another hurdle for the Trumpster. And we've already seen how these subpoenas are working out. It's hit and miss because the Justice Department prosecutes some and refuses to prosecute others. Point in case, Mark Meadows is still out there, but Steve Bannon is already in the system. And of course, we know that like 750 people have already been prosecuted and convicted for their active participation in the January 6th thing. However you look at it, it causes you or one to question, is our judicial system functional? I mean, Trump has already proven that if you put the right judges in the right place, you can do, at a very minimum, stall your legal proceedings or stall legal proceedings that involve you. And as the evidence stacks up on many different fronts for many different crimes, I mean, it's going from being a smoking gun to a fucking chimney on a smelting factory. But until an individual is proven guilty and sentenced by a valid court of law, justice remains blind. And today, justice on several different fronts is proven that it is not only blind, but in some cases, it's crippled and fucking crazy. That's it. I'm done. I'm tired. I gotta go. So God bless and peace out from Uncle Ricky at Uncle Ricky's house.